On my desk in my office at home, there is a calendar that sits upright and is large enough to make notations on for the various days. 9 out of 10 of the notations on that calendar are put there by my wife. They are in large part reminding me of things that I am supposed to do. Thursdays, for instance, are recycle days, and the notation on my calendar is put out the pink can. I checked the calendar this week to see what I had not done, and on there was a reminder that Wednesday was dinner with the Smiths. Barbara also reminded me to check the calendar. And the comment was, it's our turn. You see, we keep score. We alternate who picks the place, and we alternate the role of host couple who picks up the bar tab. God forbid that we should not get the sequence straight. But isn't that what we do? Don't we keep score? I know other people who do this. We keep score. Who owes who? Every December at our house, Barbara decides to do a series of dinners. And I know full well that the invitation list will be checked with the calendar to see who do we owe. Who has invited us? And we will repay them. The Gospel for today is another chapter in the account of Jesus and his disciples making their way to Jerusalem. They are traveling from the north country, from Galilee, down towards the coast to Jerusalem. Not only the seat of their religion, but the seat of the occupying governor of the province. They are traveling by foot. They are totally dependent on the hospitality of people for where they stay and what they eat. If you stop and think about it, Jesus has long been gone from Joseph's carpentry shop. He's become an itinerant preacher. The disciples, most of whom were fishermen, have left their fishing boat on the shores of the Galilee and are following Jesus on this trip to Jerusalem. They are beggars. That's what we would call them this day. They are dependent on the hospitality of people in the various towns and villages for where they stay and what they eat. They are dependent people. Unemployed pilgrims, we would call them. Jesus' reputation has preceded him. We know that there have been at least 4 previous occasions where he has disturbed the powers that be in local synagogues because he has had the audacity to heal someone on a Sabbath. It is provisions in their law not to do so. They are the religious rite of their day. And so the picture in this morning's Gospel is Jesus being invited to the home of a respectable person, a leader in the community, a Pharisee and his friends. Parenthetically, that on the way there he encounters an individual who is ill. Scripture says he has dropsy. Dropsy is the ancient term for congestive heart failure due to a buildup of fluids. The man's ill. He's going to have a stroke. And we're told that Jesus cures him of his illness, but the problem is, for the Pharisees, it is the holy day. It is the Sabbath. They enter the Pharisee's house. Jesus is invited to take a seat. The seating arrangement in those days, and even to this day in many parts of that ancient world, consists of sitting on cushions. And usually for each place there is 3 cushions. The person with the most respect, the person of honor, among others, gets the middle cushion where they sit. Jesus watches the house guests, the dinner guests arrive, and how the seating takes place. And he comments on their behavior. He uses as his example customary procedures at a large fashionable wedding, where people are seated according to their social status. And he points out how embarrassing it would be if you were in a reserved place and the host had to come and tell you to move because there was somebody who was more important, who had more status than you, and you had to take a lower place. His advice is, take the lower place to begin with, that you might be invited up higher. Evelyn Underhill, the great spiritual writer of our day, says that everyone has 3 deep cravings by virtue of being human. You and I have 3 deep cravings. The first craving is the longing to go in search of a lost home, a better place, a Garden of Eden. Search for that place you know is really yours and you belong there and you are special. It's the longing that makes all of us pilgrims in a very real way. The second craving is the craving of our hearts for another heart, a soulmate for our soul. In a real sense, that craving makes us all lovers. And finally, Ms. Underhill says that we all have a craving for purity. That craving in some quarters craving for purity has produced saints. There's nothing wrong with her list. I think it is admirable and true. But I would add to it a 4th craving, a 4th desire. It is the craving for recognition. Everybody wants to be somebody, at least at some time, some place, to be able to say, I was the somebody there. When we are at our best in that craving of being somebody, it ensures that things will get done, children will be born, houses will be built, jobs will be accomplished, the community will be served. But it also can be the motivation for us folks, like the Pharisees in our gospel for this morning, to seek out the higher places, that place of honor. That form of self-assertion is expressed by Teddy in Fiddler on the Roof when he sings, if I had $1,000, I'd get a seat next to the eastern wall. You see, the Eastern Wall is a sacred place in the temple in Jerusalem, and the Eastern Wall in every synagogue is the special wall. These heavy things, if I had all I could ask for, there would be a seat next to the Eastern Wall. The problem with our longing to be somebody is that too often we pursue that goal at someone else's expense. You know how it goes. Put someone down that we might be put up. We've all done it at some time or another. It is particularly bad among teenagers. And I would submit to you that in a woman's dorm, it is one of the worst things going. My 10 years as chaplain at a women's university, predominantly women's university, meant that this next week was terribly important. It's Rush Week. Rush Week. All of those girls want a sorority. They would like to have the sorority of their choosing, but God forbid, no sorority at all is the absolute end. My office and the university counselor's office were side by side. The week after Rush Week, we couldn't get there early enough or stay late enough. One after another, a co-ed would arrive in tears, feeling slighted. Someone had said something about them that cost them an invitation to the sorority of their choice. You see, the problem is when we have to put others down in order to build ourselves up, we are headed for trouble. And this is what Jesus was trying to tell those dinner guests. Putting other people down to build yourself up will ultimately end in your own destruction. The realization that you are somebody, that I am somebody, ultimately must come from the one who created us. We are somebody because of our Creator. I'm not discounting the role of parents, friends, children, parishioners. But ultimately, who you are and who I am is the gift of one who created me, not you. That we are marked with God's sign, that cross on our foreheads, and those wonderful words, you are marked as Christ only forever. Nobody else's. We are who we are, of ultimate value to the one who has created us. And there's those wonderful words at baptism. You are marked as Christ only forever. That's what the kingdom is all about. Years ago, when I moved from Carrollton to Atlanta to start a new congregation, I was invited to join a small group of clergy, 7 in number, who met every other week with a psychiatrist friend. We were there to talk about our lives, all of us under certain strains, certain expectations. We were there to try and help each other and not get caught up in what was going on. Our psychiatrist, Charles Fulgham, would eventually become a priest in this diocese. Unfortunately, he died a few months ago. His office was in Buckhead, and in the building where we met on those wonderful Tuesdays. There was a small lunch counter, served sandwiches and soft drinks. Across from the lunch counter, there was a long curved bench where you could sit, and little tables in front of that bench with one chair at each table. On this particular day, I got there early, was hungry, ordered a sandwich and a Coke, turned around and looked, and there was no place to sit except one empty chair on the end of the row at a table where there sat the only black man in the place. I looked, and I wasn't about to stand with a sandwich. He looked up at me and pointed to the chair. I went over and sat down. He was obviously there to see a doctor. He had a cast on his foot. I told him about our group, and he nodded, and he said, "I'm a pastor too. I'm interested. Tell me about it." We talked for a while. It was time for my appointment. He had his earlier. When he got up, I stood to shake hands, and I said, because I had recognized him eventually, and I said, "Dr. King, thank you for letting me eat lunch with you." And he smiled and he said, "I enjoyed it, but it's Martin, just Martin." You know, sometimes the kingdom just happens. Amen.